The Third Side of the Coin, brought to you by Excalibur Coaching and Consulting.
Hello, and welcome to the Third Side of the Coin podcast, episode 5, How Do I Identify as a Leader? My name is Aberle, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Tim Wong. I'm the president of Excalibur Coaching and Consulting, a leadership and career coaching firm that partners with current and aspiring leaders going through career transition and looking to find ways to build a world of better leadership. My co-host, Tim Wong, is a content creator focusing on thought leadership for YPO and defining learning themes for programming globally relevant top leadership learning events. He is also an international faculty for the Art of Living Foundation and the International Association of Human Values. Good evening, Tim. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Alex. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Today, we wanted to talk about leadership identity. To me, when I hear the word identity, in essence, it means our ego identity and having deep understanding of how we present ourselves in our life in general. When I think ego identity, I associate it partly with suffering. What exactly does this really mean for a leader? And what is the significance of developing identity? So, Tim, I would like to kind of hear your opinion.
Ego everyone has. Even if you say, I don't have an ego, that is an ego in itself. So ego as an identity is a pivot point for you in how you show up or what your presence is like in that situation. So a healthy ego is one that allows you to excel in the place you're in right now. But an unhealthy ego is one that restricts you or holds you back. So for example, if I was a leader and I walked in the room and I was expecting people to respect me, that's an unhealthy ego because you're there, thinking that people should be subservient to you or should do what you say. But if you walk into a room with an attitude of service or an attitude of it doesn't matter whether I'm a leader or not a leader, I'm still approaching it in a positive way.
In my line of work as a coach, I meet so many individuals who are already experienced leaders and those who are aspiring to get the titles of leaders. And depending on their individual career story, I always start by asking them, what is your personal leadership statement? In other words, I want to understand a person's leadership identity or vision, beliefs, goals, and approaches. What truly makes them stand out from the crowd filled with just really so much talent out there who has proven that leadership doesn't have to be formal. I want to know how they look at the relational aspect of life and how they see the role of people that they lead. And for someone who is an aspiring leader, I would say first thing that they need to do is to start building or improving their leadership skills before they get a title that they believe they deserve. An informal leader can mobilize forces into action by using their personal and professional skills to motivate and influence others to work towards a common goal. What's your view specifically on developing the leadership identity, especially for someone who is not yet a leader and is probably wondering, why am I not getting promoted? I would like to become a manager and such.
I think the first thing for someone to acknowledge is that leadership or being a leader doesn't come with a title. I mean, you and I know that as you work through the corporate ladder or teams, you soon begin to see you have formal leaders and informal leaders, and it's usually the informal leaders that have far more influence than what the formal leader has. So the first thing, yes, a title does help in opening doors, but when it comes to getting things done, not necessarily so. I think in the more contemporary context, leadership is, or the ego or the identity, is more about your own narrative. What is it that makes you different or special or unique that allows you to inspire people around you? If I was your manager, I can motivate you with your salary or with job security. That's a motivation, because that's a stick or a crook, trying to get you to do something. But inspiring you means I don't really have anything that I can give you, but just to trigger or spark that potential in you that you can do it, or you have the potential to do it. And if you don't succeed in it, you can also be confident that I will support you in order to do a quick recovery as soon as possible.
For many individuals who are passionate about the idea of becoming a manager or leader, is to start building the basic knowledge of leadership principles or models. If somebody doesn't have an opportunity to go to college, there's a lot of free information out there. This just applies to individual contributors, entrepreneurs, or even some of the current managers who are looking to get promoted for more senior roles. There's so many books available on leadership, but I think because of the fact that there's so much information out there, it's kind of difficult to truly find what is going to be applicable in today's world.
Well, we covered this in one or two sessions earlier when we talked about trust, right? So when you're talking about leadership, it's how are you able to mobilize or scale trust in a very efficient and effective way in a minimal period of time. You see, as a leader, you need trust, otherwise you will not be a leader. And how you're able to scale trust is your own confidence in yourself, where people can see it. And at the same time, they know that you have that certain vulnerability in you, that you're aware of it. And at the same time, you're okay with it, because as an individual, if we are infallible, then we start to get conceited, and that leads into a downward spiral. So the whole thing about identity as a leader, or identity as a high-performing, high-potential individual, is how much trust can you leverage with other people, because they have to believe in you. They may not know where they're headed, but they believe in you, so they trust in you, and you can lead them. It's a difference between competency and being the leader. You might be very competent in your work, but if they don't trust you, what would they say? Oh, he was very good in his work, but I wouldn't trust him. But if you were all right in your competency and people trusted you a lot, there's a lot of affection. So you're looking at affection and competency. Trust comes with affection, or affection creates trust.
I hear people are saying that, the leader needs to be an expert in a certain field. But I go back to the whole idea that being someone who just got promoted as an individual contributor is not necessarily going to become a great leader. Yes, they're experts, let's say in IT or engineering, whatever the field that they're experts in, and they get promoted because of that reason. It does not guarantee that that specific individual is going to be able to develop trust in the people that they're supposed to lead. I would love to hear your opinion. Where would that individual who is striving to become either a new leader or better leader, if they already hold a management role, where do they start if they identified through a certain degree of self-awareness to become that person that people aspire to follow and trust more?
Become a good listener, right? You need to be able to hear what is actually being said, right? Rather than what's just being expressed. Because sometimes behind the expression, there is also sentiments, and you don't know what the backstory is. I've always seen great leaders, the ones I've come across, are ones that listen with intent, because they want to understand it before they can respond to it. I think it's rather foolhardy to think that a leader knows everything. In fact, a good leader is one that can assemble the best team to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen that in companies where the guy or girl is not necessarily the most competent in a particular area, but they're certainly great in assembling the best teams available that will drive the change. You can't expect these days to be a specialist in all trades, but in fact, you should look towards being someone that is able to join the dots together. And that also goes back to, I think, our very first video cast on creativity. To have that creative mind, you must be able to appreciate the different skill sets or qualities around you in order to create something or to build something like a Lego set. Different colors of Lego pieces, and you assemble it together. It might be multicolored, doesn't matter, but it still serves a function, and that's what all teams are about. And so going back to today's topic on identity and ego, you need to have that identity in order to know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So say, for example, you need an ego of a mother in order to function effectively as a mother. You can't walk into home and function still as a senior female executive at work and bring it back home. No, so ego or identity is that role that you play, and we all play many different roles, because my role to you on this call is a colleague. When we're off the call, it's a friend, but there's a time and place for everything. I think, people say, oh, you have to be natural and be authentic, but I think authenticity isn't being the same person in terms of expression in all scenes. Authenticity is really that innocent feeling or awareness that you have that does get expressed, regardless of whether I'm wearing a tie and jacket or whether I'm just wearing a t-shirt or sport shirts right now. It's all, again, going back to our exploration of who I am or what I am, and that is all about exploring and coming to not a conclusion, but a holding spot for what you think a leader should be. I mean, Alex, if you take back to when we first started work, what a leader should be in our mind, mm-hmm. and what a leader is now, after we've experienced a lot of our working experience, it's very different things. And it's part of the growth cycle of any workplace. Even at the stage where I'm at right now, dealing with a lot of successful leaders, I'm also still learning because you're talking about individual differences.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that. Just thinking back to the days when I first got promoted, and my feeling was drastically different. I did not necessarily understand, not that I didn't know theoretically what leadership meant, but I do believe truly that it is important to be very clear what you stand for, and I always recommend that individuals first start with identifying what does leadership mean, or what is the purpose of leadership. So before they get promoted, they need to really have a clear understanding and answer for themselves what the purpose of the leadership is. Another point is that an individual defines and expresses what their leadership vision is. What goals are they striving to accomplish when leading people? I think it's worth looking at the theoretical approach here and understand that because of the fact that there's so many leadership styles and models, you as an individual are going to be able to identify with some of them, not all of them. The leadership style has to be changed and adapted depending on the situation and experience. Over time, start understanding where it is appropriate to apply each individual style. To learn more about executive leadership and career coaching, resume writing, or organizational development services, go to www.excaliburcoaching.com or connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you. To hear more, go to part 2.